Good evening, and welcome to Soluble, America's Political Central. After a 2-year run and staying ahead, COVID 19 finally caught up with me and my family. Along with an injury from my day job, caused us to shut down for a considerable amount of time. We thank God that we're back to life, health, and strength now, full life, health, and strength, and we're ready to begin again with a new broadcast for Soluble. We'd like to thank our audience members for their patience and our well wishes or what have you, but we're back now after a bout with coronavirus, workplace injuries, and computer glitches. We're back. So from the time we last broadcast up to now, let's do a quick rewind. The economy seems to be getting better. Gas prices are slowly coming down. We got Senator Manchin and Senator Sinema on board. We've got the Inflation Reduction Act passed. So let's hope it does some good. I mean, it may take a few years down the road. Things are still kind of at a somewhat a stalemate in Ukraine. Russia's still up to no good there. And we're hoping for the best, by continuing to supply the Ukrainian people with aid and support in whatever way that we can. We're hoping for the best there, for a fast, peaceful solution. Brittany Griner, Paul Whelan, let's continue to remember them, continue to press for their release from being unjustly detained over in Russia. So those are just some of the things. Mass shootings have somewhat slowed, faded for now. Let's hope that, our politicians can keep their foot on the gas when it comes to doing whatever it takes to stop mass shootings in America. We here at Soluble are going to always advocate for the ban against assault-style weapons being carried by American citizens. That's always going to be our stance. But nevertheless, from the time we last broadcast to now, where we're back on the air again, the shootings have seemed to go down, subside, wane, if you will, just a little. And we hope and pray that our political leaders can work across the aisle to keep it this way, to make it go away permanently. Because as I said, it does have a domino effect on the American psyche. Even if you're not a victim, even if you're not a family of a victim, it takes a toll on the overall American psyche. So what else is going on? The primaries are upon us. Early voting, absentee ballot, mail-in voting. Let's get on board. Let's get on board. We see what happened in Kansas here a couple of weeks ago when there was a referendum on abortion. Democrats in Kansas rocked the vote and kept things in a way in Kansas where it could be comfortable for women to make their own medical choices. So we see what can happen if we don't vote, whether the Supreme Court is stacked, whether the Supreme Court is tilted, whether the Supreme Court is illegitimate. We see what can happen when we don't vote. Those are the type of things that can happen. With a stacked, illegitimate, right-leaning right-leaning Supreme Court can happen, can come into effect with you not voting. But as I said, what happened in Kansas has to let us as Democrats all across the country see that when we go out and vote, it doesn't matter about the party that's in the minority, what they may be trying to do, because the last line of defense and those who have the last say and the real power are the everyday American people. There is the power with your vote. So the primaries are upon us. It's primary season. It's primary season. So, you know, with the economy slowly ticking back to pre-pandemic levels on everything from shipping supplies to, you know, hospitalizations being down, jobs coming back. It's not broke. So the only way to keep it where it's not broke and where Republicans think it is, and they feel like they need to fix it, is we got to keep them out. If it's not broke, we got to keep them out. So in order to keep it well put together, we have to continue to vote. We have to continue to vote. We remember what happened when we had our last president in office during his first term when he lost the majority. Then there was an uphill battle for everything after that. The Affordable Care Act and anything else that 44 tried to get done on behalf of the American people. So here we are in this moment again. Let's not let the same thing, let's not make the same mistake as we did before by letting President Biden down during the midterms. We need to keep the majorities where they are because, as I said, we see things working now, slowly starting to come back. If you give it enough time with a democratic fine-tuning, dedication, commitment to the people, to the middle class first, and then to all of America. To the middle class first, the working class, and then all of America with the Democrats in, fine-tuning, using the system of checks and balances, tweaking over here, turning it to the left or right over there. Things are slowly starting to get back to pre-pandemic norms. But if you don't go and vote and somehow we lose the majority that we have now, you know where it's at. Like I say, Twilight Zone things like investigating Hunter Biden. For what? Things that just waste the taxpayers' dime and the taxpayers' time. So, you know, let's make sure that we rock the vote. Let's make sure that we rock the vote. You have, you know, Dr. Oz, as I said, Herschel Walker, Trumpites, Trump acolytes who feel as if they need to come into office with the same approach that 45 came into office with, a radical approach, an unethical approach, saber rattling, saying I won't have time to play golf. I'll be too busy doing the work of the people. We need politicians who are going to say one thing on the campaign trail and then get in office and try their best to do that, which the American people sent them to Washington to do. Now, you know, we have to stay on our Democratic elected leaders. We have to stay on them. You can write in. You can start a podcast that I've chosen to do. You can do a number of things to get engaged and stay engaged. Unless, you know, we turn back the hands of time. To a time where, you know, there was a slogan saying, make America great again. But the goings on during that time was doing anything but making America great again. So let's rock the vote. It's now or never. Here is the situation upon us. Here's what we're presented with. And the power is in the hands of the people, not the lying politicians on the campaign commercials, not the politicians who are currently sitting in power right now in Washington. We, the people, have the power. So great news from since we last aired to now. As I said, things are looking up. Things are looking up. They're not looking downward. Gas prices are going down. You know, there's a war going on in Ukraine right now. So some of these things, you know, of course, like I said, they're beyond the president's immediate power to change, like maybe food prices, supply and demand, or shipping from that part of the world. And the things that Ukraine does best, grains, and whatever other, cash crops that they ship to a vast majority of the people in this world. There's little that the president right now can do to control that. We have to let sanctions play out. Keep giving Ukraine the aid that they need, and hopefully we'll begin to see a turnaround going into 2023. But based on what we see right now at this point in time, we know that, like I said, things are getting better. We can look at the glass as half full versus half empty. So rock the vote more than ever. Go out to your local polling places, to your local voting precincts, and cast a ballot. That little time that it takes can make a world of difference for you and your family. It can make a world of difference. We want to take time to speak out for the citizens of Kentucky. That has been a serious climatic disaster that's happened, since we've last been on air here. There's Eastern Kentucky kind of went through a serious flood that put a lot of people into situations of even more despair, homelessness. We know that climate change is real. So, we want to encourage the people of Kentucky, get the help, the support, the advice, whatever expertise that we can bring to bear, because these are no longer 1 in 100-year storms. We know that they're coming with a lot more intensity and a lot more frequency now. So we want to, encourage our Democratic leaders, between the President Biden and Governor Beshear, we're here, we're ready, to support whatever that we can do to help the people of Eastern Kentucky. What else is going on? We've had a raid on Mar-a-Lago for suspected missing classified documents. So, as I said, with the primary season upon it, it should be a no-brainer. It should be a no-brainer. There's either a party here that has respect for law enforcement, has respect for law and order, or they don't. You can't play both sides of the fence. You support the FBI. You support law enforcement on any level, local, state, or federal. But as soon as the FBI does something to hold a former president to account, because we live in a system where no one is above the law. And that was starting to be a question here at Soluble until the raid on Mar-a-Lago. We could begin to feel that, okay, it seems that it is true. It is true so far that no one is above the law. You have documents there. You have them there illegally. You have them there not stored in the right proper place that they need to be stored. And so this was necessary. The powers that be in the departments, wherever they apply, had already asked the president, the former president, and his aides, had all documents, all classified material been turned over to the proper authorities or been restored to their proper place? And the answer was yes. But I guess after auditing, going through, inventory or whatever, they realized that there were some things that were still missing. But this is a president who loves law and order, who loves this country. For a former president who loves this country, you don't play around and take lightly highly classified secrets that can easily fall into the wrong hands. You sign an act, you sign into law something that strengthens espionage, or when it comes to classified secrets, how they're handled, how you can be punished, how serious we need to take the handling of classified material. Yet and still, this has happened. So, with the Republican Party, with the former president, with 45, is right, or is right actually left? Can we get out of a state of ambiguity when it comes to the Republican Party? whether it be the former president or members of the Congress, Senate, wherever, can we pull our head out of the clouds, stop making things up? Now, all of a sudden, the FBI is bad because they're simply doing their job to hold a former rogue president to account. To do that is now to be like from the Republicans' point of view, now they're like the Gestapo. They're overreaching. It's a flagrant violation of a former president. No. This was forced on the Department of Justice. They had to act. There was something out of place here. So the system, the checks and balances that we operate under, that we govern under, they were activated. They say, okay, we don't have all the classified material, so let's activate the system of checks and balances to do what it takes to get them. So that called for a raid. That called for a raid on a former president's residence who claimed so much to love this country. Who claimed so much to love this country. Yet with top secret classified material, he's handling it as if it was sheets of paper that was from a high school love letter to his high school sweetheart. This is how the former president is handling top classified government secrets. Another 4 years of this, as you've heard people from his own administration say, this democracy, this republic could be irretrievably broken. It could be irretrievably broken with another 4 years. But you, the American people, as I said, you have the power. The power is in your hand. Things are looking up. So you have to do your own research. You know, that's one of the great things about this democracy also, that this system that we operate in. You can do your own fact finding. You don't have to believe me. You don't have to take Soluble's word for it. Although we go on a serious fact finding mission here to not report nothing but the facts. But do your research. Look into it. See what the policy is. Look for the real truth. Dig. But at the end of the day, after all your research and your digging, you know, it is what it is. The economy has traditionally done better under Democratic administrations. Historically, it's done better under Democratic administrations. So, as I said, it's not broken. It's getting better. You know, we're slowly coming out of the dark ages of the MAGA movement. We're slowly coming out of the dark times of the MAGA movement. And we ought to keep going forward. To do anything else would be to stop and stand still, or at the worst, move backwards. Because they had it. They had the majority. They had it for 4 years. Well, in the White House, not in the House or the Senate. Where they had a significant time with the majority there. And you see what happened. One of the president's first priorities was to give a tax cut to the wealthy. Like they really needed it. Did it add to the deficit? Yes. And these are fiscal conservatives. So, you know, you have to be able to see through the smoke and mirrors. Go into the Republican playbook, as I said. Spin, beguiling, polarization, lies. It's not good for democracy, and it's not good for the future of this country. Is it setting democracy back, or is it taking us forward? Ask yourself. Ask yourself. And the answer, you know, it shouldn't be hard to find, because the facts are what they are. The facts are the facts. The January 6th hearings are still in progress. We don't know what else is going to be dug up. We don't know what else lies beneath. But until they can bring this fact-finding endeavor to a close, then we ought to do everything in our power to keep these members seated, to keep this commission or panel going until we can get to the bottom of just how low the depths of depravity went for the president to try to stay in power, for the former president to try to stay in power. Democracy is at stake. We can't trust Republicans for the truth. This is what they've shown so far. Don't just take my word for it. This is what they've shown. Search your heart of hearts. Look at what they say, and then look at what they do. Go into the playbook. They're gonna do it. They're gonna do it. They're gonna spin it no matter how good the economy looks. You know, like right now during the primaries, they're running these ads that the economy is tanking, gas prices. And, you know, we all know different. We all know different. We all know that things are slowly turning around. But yet all the Republicans can run on is lies and deceit. They don't have a plan. You know, coming into power, taking the reins of power in November and going to investigations of Hunter Biden, that's not what we need. That's no kind of way going to help your pocketbook or my pocketbook. That's no kind of way going to help with national security, to strengthen our ties with our allies, to form a strong alliance against rogue regimes that may be in China or Russia. It's not going to help none of that. It's only going to set us back. It's only going to distract. And when we as a country, when we're having to endure all these investigations and go through all these false investigations and a waste of taxpayers' money and time, it makes us weaker as a country. So you have to decide. You know, the melting pot has melted more. And as time goes on, who knows what will happen. But we know that there's no great replacement on the way. We know that there's no deep state. Forget about that. These are things that are created for distraction, to trick, to mislead and deceive. QAnon. These are the kind of people in the organization that are formed around the Republican Party. QAnon. Who is this anonymous person that's pushing all these false conspiracies? There's a rogue pedophile regime in a pizza shop in Washington, D.C. And, you know, sadly, you have Republicans who are just so far gone that they'll believe this, because that's what this is the environment that the former president has created. He's created an environment of distrust for the government. Yet, as I said, he wants to be the leader of government, where he claims that he'll straighten it up. He'll take it all away. What did the president say? Anybody on the campaign trail? If you plead the fifth, you must have something to hide. Yet he comes right back years later and pleads the fifth. He's all over the place. He's all over the place. So we know that he can't be trusted again with the reins of power. With the way he's handled classified material, he can't be trusted with nuclear codes. And it's a sad day in America. This is, you know, even though I'm Democrat, it's not something that it's time to celebrate. You know, the former president's shortcomings. It's a sad time because it puts us all in a dangerous situation. It puts our whole way of life in a dangerous situation. For the way the former president comes in with this MAGA movement. He comes into office with blood on his hand. He leaves office with blood on his hand. And over a year after he's left office, since the FBI raid, he has blood on his hands. Some young man in Ohio wants to raid the FBI office and get revenge. and the FBI is simply just doing their job. Simply just doing their job. And they have to stop what they're doing on serious criminal matters, on things, on criminals out there, or things that could be going on to really hurt America, just to go after rogue Trump supporters who have just went so far to the right with him. And we all know what it is. We all know what it is. I mean, the Republicans, under Trump, and especially with Trump, they feel threatened by the melting pot. The way it's melted more and incorporated different races into the everyday American fold of politics, of law and order, of being shot callers. This is what it's all about. This is what it's all about. This is what makes the Republican Party feel so threatened. And as I've said, they're a party of inclusiveness. They're not a party of racists, to let them tell it. But there has been no minority put on the ticket other than a woman. We give them some credit for that. But, being that she was so unqualified, Sarah Palin, being that she was so unqualified, it really doesn't, carry a lot of weight with the American people that they're honest and sincere and they're legitimate about minorities being on the ticket. So this is what it is. The melting pot is melting even more. The Republicans are alarmed. So, and I'll end it with that. If you're not a racist party, if you're a party of inclusivity, then put a minority on the ticket. You have them there, as I've stated before: Rubio, Cruz, Carson, Haley, but yet not one on the ticket. Not one even in a vice presidential role on the ticket. So we're going to see. We're going to see. And as we take a wait and see approach as American citizens, like I say, you're waiting to wield your power. And that's a good thing. And that's what you ought to keep in mind. You're waiting, you're watching, you're listening to what's being said. And when it's time to go into the booth to vote, you can make an educated choice. You can make an informed choice. But it's right there before you. The president is a law and order president, but yet he's constantly breaking the law. As of late, with classified materials, with what's going on in New York. He shrinks does he shrink the value of his properties when it's time to pay taxes? And then turns back around and inflates the value of his properties when he wants a loan or when he wants to borrow money on said properties? Probably so, probably so. Because we all know, based on his memoirs, his writings, that, his father taught him how to be a killer in business. And, he takes that to heart. He takes pride in that. It's all he knows. It's the crooked way. And we seen what happened in the 4 years of the MAGA era. We see what happened. And if it was such a good thing, Americans are not slow to catch on. American people are not slow to comprehend. He would have got another 4 years. So even though these 70 million plus are in his corner, they're rallying behind him. They're in the minority as of right now. Because if they weren't, he'd be still in the Oval Office, wreaking havoc, breaking down institutions, breaking down our institutional norms, degrading democracy instead of upgrading it, instead of strengthening it. So keep that in mind to all my Democratic voters out there. This 70 plus million that's in the former president's corner are in the minority. But it's up to you to keep them there. It's up to you to keep them there by going out and casting a vote. It's just that simple. As I said, there are two examples there that when it comes to especially Negroes in America, those are two prime examples where your vote does make a difference. So that we here at Soluble, we hope that we can get you out of the mind state of my vote doesn't matter. They're going to do what they want to do anyway. Here we have two prime examples where you're wrong. November 2020, when we voted the former president out. The system of checks and balances worked. They held in spite of lies, in spite of false conspiracies. The system held. The system worked. Another prime example of where when you rock the vote, you can make a difference. In Kansas City, with the referendum on abortion, they won. A woman's right to choose is alive and well in Kansas. So there you have it. Those are two of the latest prime examples that I can give you of the power that you have in your vote. So the future of the republic is on the line. The future of the republic is on the line. Of our democratic norms, of our institutional norms, they're on the line here. They're on the line. And we've seen time and time again, just for the Republicans to rally behind this 70 plus million who, as I can't help but continue to state, are in the minority. That's where they're at. That's where the Republican Party and the Republican candidates are at. They're torn between the truth and being afraid of the people who support Trump, like the people who raided the Capitol on January the 6th. They don't have enough moxie. They're not man enough or woman enough to stand up to Trump supporters and look them in the eye and tell them he's wrong. And if you're supporting it, you're wrong. We have to turn the page here. I mean, face it. It was an experiment. You tried it. You took a reality show contestant or a reality show gamer, real estate business dealer, and you put him in the Oval Office. With good intentions. You felt like he's a businessman. He knows how things work. He'll do good. One can't help but to expect that when you have high hopes for your candidate. In spite of all the things that happened on the campaign trail, encouragement of violence, colluding with foreign powers. These are just some of the things that happened on the campaign trail. You tried it. It didn't work. Can you move on? That's the question that we as Democrats should constantly between now and 2024 pose to the Republican Party and Republican lawmakers. Can you turn the page? Can you do the right thing? In spite of the anger, the threats that you may get coming directly at you from Trump supporters. Can you stand up for the rule of law, the truth, and move on? No one's going to fault you for electing the former president. No one's going to fault you for believing in the MAGA movement and what the former president started out trying to create here in America. Nobody's going to fault you for that. But at the end of the day, it's 4 or 5 years later now. Can you look at the body of work in all honesty for what it is? Can you call a falsehood a falsehood? Can you say that the president is in office trying to bribe a foreign leader to get himself impeached? Can you say that the president is not fully behind veterans as he says he is when he's on the campaign trail or when he's behind the podium? Take a long, honest look at what you tried. It's a failed experiment. I know that's a bitter pill to swallow, but it is what it is. If the Republican Party has any ethics left, if Republican lawmakers have any ethics left, any shred of honesty, respect for law and order, respect for the political norms that have operated in our institution over the years. Of course, there's been disagreement. There's been a back and forth, but there's always a work towards compromise. No matter how polarized it may get, we're always building towards bipartisanship. We're constantly working towards that. Or that's the way it's been in the past. So that's the question. Can the Republican Party, Republican voters, Republican lawmakers, can they look at this body of work for the last 5 years? Take an honest, wholehearted look at it. Forget the distraction. Forget the talking points where it's rigged. It's a witch hunt. It's a deep state. Because these things are not so. They're created and they're made talking points to fire up the base. But what are they firing you up to? You're getting fired up for a bunch of falsehoods. You got fired up on January the 6th, and now you're losing your jobs. You're going to jail. You're losing your standing in the community. Now here it is, fast forward. The FBI has had no other choice. They were forced to. This was nothing that they did with gladness or with eagerness, or as some kind of conspiracy to paint Trump in even more darker or worse light than he's already painted in. They were forced to go into Mar-a-Lago because we have top secret classified information that the president is harboring in an unsafe way, in a way that's out of line with our institutional norms and the protocols that have always been in place to protect these American secrets. So, we actually look at this body of work. Democrats, we know what we have to do. We have to keep our leaders fired up. We have to keep our leaders held accountable. There's no time to sit back and relax with this majority because it's a fragile majority if we don't go to the polls, if we don't go out and vote in November. This is a very fragile majority. It's a majority in question. And the only way as Democratic voters that we can take away the question marks is to go out and vote in droves, go out and vote in huge numbers. We see what happened in Kansas. We see what happened in November 2020 when the American public was fed up with the MAGA movement, when America was fed up with the Make America Great Again movement. We see what happened. So there's no time for complacency. We have to stay fired up. We have to stay informed. And we have to know when to strike, whether it be in the form of going to the polls in huge numbers, whether it be to protest, whether it be to call out a falsehood, whether it be to call out something that may be a threat to the future of American democracy. So this is where we are. The moment is upon us, and we must seize it. We must seize it, or risk going back to a time of divisiveness, political polarization. We risk going back to a dark time in politics where the lie became the truth. We risk going back to a dark time of so-called fake news. We risk a time of going back to dark times of alternative facts, twisting of the truth, something that was never heard of. But this existed in the MAGA movement, alternative facts, creation of a deep state, QAnon. All these people are in the shadows. I mean, we know that the Republican Party is against big government. But sometimes big brother watching over little brother or little sister is a good thing. For example, if the parents leave and go out for the night and they got a teenager who's, let's just say for the sake of argument, 17, And then they also got a 12-year-old. It's a good thing that 17-year-old is their big brother in the form of big brother. But we know the Republicans are against big government. And now we see why. Now we should begin to, with our eyes wide open, woke, as they like to call us, that we're the woke crowd now. I won't use the word mob because that's false. But if we're woke now, which we truly should be, we ought to see that. I mean, it's okay to be against big government in the way that has always been in the past, where you want to have states' rights. You don't want to have the government. You don't want to have government regulations all over the top of you, whether you believe in it or not, whether you think it's right or wrong or not. It's up for debate. But the Republicans have clearly went so far rogue right with their ideology of not wanting big government to create conspiracies within the government. So, take a long look at it. Let's use common sense. A government of the people, for the people, by the people cannot mislead the people because we're well aware of what's going on. So let's be well aware of whatever side of the aisle it's on, whether it could be Democrat, whether it be Republican. If they're falsehoods, if they're lies, if they're half-truths, let's do real serious fact-checking, fact-finding to call it out wherever it may be. It just so happened at this particular point in time, it more consists in the Republican Party. They're ate up with it. They're infested with it to the point where they've started to compromise the truth. They've started to compromise respect for law and order. So let's look at it for what it is. And it's time to rock the vote. Primary season is upon us. Here in the great city of Jacksonville, where I currently reside, where, early voting is upon us. We have a huge race coming up for replacement of the sheriff. We have a referendum on the ballot to give the teachers more pay. As Florida ranks so far down when it comes to teacher pay. We have a chance to right this, by paying a little bit more in property taxes. Because teaching is a serious job, and we should value the people who educate our young, because that education is what carries America. It's what keeps America number one in innovation, technology, production. This is what keeps America moving. And anytime when you look at this great nation and see how far we've come, you owe a lot of that to teachers who have taken young minds and shaped them on a path towards greatness, on a path towards ambitious achievement. We owe all this to teachers, because other than parents, who are the child's first teacher, the next in line is the teacher in the schoolhouse, in the school building. So these things are on the ballot. Primary season is upon us. And in order to keep things moving back to a sense of normalcy, a sense of pre-COVID living conditions and lifestyles, we have to vote. We have to vote, or we'll create, or allow to be created, a much more dire situation than what it was during the pandemic and before the pandemic. So it's not broke right now. It's not broke. But if we don't go out and vote, then there can start to be a crack in the healing process that has begun to occur after the election of November 2020. It's like a breath of fresh air now. And we see with the latest handling of these classified documents, what's already going on with the January 6th hearing. all the revelations that are coming out there. Let's take a long look at it. And to our Republican colleagues, as I said, the truth will prevail. So you're either willing to stand up and tell the former president and all his supporters the truth, or you will continue to be in the minority. Can you put country over party? And one of the main ways to do that is to stand on the truth. Have some ethics about your party. This is the only way. This is the first and foremost way to get back to the days of what it was like before 45 came into power. With all the hostility that he brought along, with all the combativeness. Think about a time before then. You know what it was like. No one's holding it against you for the election of 2016, where you thought that the former president would come into office and transform into a ceremonial presidential being. It didn't happen. So it's up to you. You know, look at it for what it is. And that is what it is. You're not going to be able to shape and mold it into anything else. The American people are not slow to catch on. So, you know, it is what it is. You're not going to be able to take this latest raid on Mar-a-Lago and make it seem as if the FBI is on a witch hunt, or they're doing this for political purposes to destroy the president. No. The FBI is forced to do this in the system of checks and balances that we have, because we have a former president who is going rogue with classified material. I think the term that was used in internet circles is from his former aides, is that the president was slapdash when it comes to handling classified materials. He was slapdash. And that's very dangerous. We know that's very dangerous. And the way he's already afraid of Vladimir Putin. Putin can do no wrong. Putin raised a free country and starts killing women and children, and the former president labels that as smart and savvy. We know the danger that can be recreated, or that can come about again the second time around if we don't go and rock the vote. We'd like to thank you for tuning in. It's such a pleasure to be back after COVID, injuries, computer glitches, as I said at the beginning of the broadcast. It's so good to be back, and we hope to remain here in place now, giving you all the political happenings on a daily basis, week in and week out. Where the threats are, where the bills that need to be voted for are. What do we need to do to get the Supreme Court back to a legitimate balance? Because as I said before, there's never been a time here in recent history where you have a sitting president who's in office only 4 years, but yet he puts 3 Supreme Court justices on the bench. We know there have to be some shenanigans going on there, some underhandedness, some lies and deceit. So the way to change it is to jump into these primaries head first. Get knowledge of the issues, where the candidates stand on policy. And let's do like they did in Kansas. Let's rock the vote to bring this thing back to a way of life, a way of understanding, a way of normalcy before the 2016 election that brought the former president into power and turned things upside down. We thank you for joining us tonight. We hope this broadcast has been informative. We encourage any feedback, any comments. And as I said here at Soluble, when we're trying to find a solution to any given issue, any given problem, a lot of times we have to deal with painful truths, harsh truths, whereas if the truths hurt, you'll be in pain. And that's on the Democratic side as well as the Republican side. Let's stay on our Democratic officials. Let's stay on our Democratic elected leaders. Like I said, the time is not the time for complacency now, to sit back and rest on your laurels. There's still much work to do. And if we don't continue to vote, then we'll bring Republicans back into power. And, only God knows what that future looks like. A future of half-truths, untruths, spin, propaganda, fear-mongering. These are all the things that are in that playbook. And if you've been paying attention, you know it as well as we here at Soluble know it. So until our next broadcast, which will be on Wednesday, we encourage you to, as we've always said, vote, vote, vote. That is the number one thing that we can do to change the course, to get out of these rough waters and get back to smooth sailing. We need to vote. The primary season is upon us. In whatever city or state you may be in, check your local listings, see who's running, see what the issues are. We here at Soluble, we're a Democrat, we're a solid Democrat. If there's an independent that comes along and that can sway that, then so be it. But a states' rights party, as such as the Republican Party is, we can never go there because we know what states' rights harken back to here at Soluble. So rock the vote, stay positive, get informed, stay informed, and stay engaged, because that's what it's going to take to get America back on track and on a track that's going towards positivity and better lives for everyone, whether you're in the middle class, whether you're, millionaires and billionaires here in America. The Democratic Party, let's put them to work. Let's put them in office. Let's put them to work. And let's write in, let's call in, let's do whatever it takes to make sure that they're doing what we sent them to Washington, D.C. to do. So for now, we're here at Soluble. We're signing off. We'd like to say good night. Thank you for tuning in and listening. And we look forward to bringing another broadcast on this Wednesday. And we look forward to seeing you then. So for now, this is Soluble signing off and saying good night. Thank you.